So let's move over to that NL side. Let us start back in the NL East. So I'm obviously going to throw this to Will, and maybe Bobby will chime in about the Phillies. Despite how bad the Phillies have been in the last 30 days or so, they still have a 7-game lead on the Braves because they have also been as bad as the Phillies. So I'll go to you. Obviously the Phillies are pretty firmly in that NL East top spot. But just kind of give us an outlook here with the Phillies and the Braves going forward. I mean, the Braves, I can't believe I'm saying this. They're 1 game from being out of the playoffs, which is just absurd to think about.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx anything too much with the Philly situation because I've lived on the good side of history in 2007 when the Phillies were 7 games back of the Mets with 17 to play and won the division. And so they're still very much in that window. But the Phillies do have a favorable schedule moving forward. And the fact that they're playing about as poorly as the Braves are every step of the way. I'm crossing my fingers. This is just the Phillies choosing to do their April and May of the last 2 years in the summer instead of at the beginning of the season, and that they'll kind of get into a mini groove going into September or give people some breaks. But I still feel like the Phillies are the division leaders, but I gotta look at those Mets though. They are surprising and sticking around with those Braves. They were 1 game under 500 at the halfway point, a half game out of the third wild card spot. And since then, they are 21-15. Their bullpen has been very strong right now, and Edwin Diaz is back in action. And the Braves are just like the Dodgers, like the Orioles. They have the injury bug, and the injury bug is just really plaguing them because the guys that they want to step up really haven't for the most part, or at least haven't consistently. They had a good run with Kellenic for a while, but over the last like 30 days, he's batting like a buck 50, a buck 60.
Hmm.
Um, Solaire's been a nice addition for them so far. Matt Olson looked like he had strides of getting better. His average has dropped, though his power is still kind of there. Austin Riley's better, but his average is starting to drop a tad recently too. So the division seems fairly set, the Phillies. However, the Mets, if they can keep some consistency with their top of the order production with McNeil, Lindor, and Alonso, I do think it's very realistic to see them kicking the Braves out. And then we're just kind of left wondering what does this mean, if anything, for the Braves? Do they just chalk it up as the injury bug beat us and we just couldn't play up to enough of our potential because they still very much have the star power? Or will the Mets, be the Mets of recent years and, choke?
I just find it funny because I almost think, like, looking at the form of all these teams right now, I think there's a very strong argument that the Mets are the best team in the division right now in this point in time. I think you're spot on with the injuries with the Braves. I think that I mean, obviously it's been very hard for them. We knew that it was going to be hard for any team to lose the amount of players that they have, and bounce back. We just, with the pedigree with the Braves, we kind of expected them to be okay. But I mean, they're really really feeling it right now, and the Mets are playing good ball, man. Like they're sticking in games, and I wonder, like, that's gonna be an interesting race now because those Braves Mets games, I'm thinking those teams have to be playing each other later in the season, right? So I
Three
mean that
times it looks like.
okay, I was gonna say, yeah, they at
They
least have
both
to have
played the
one more.
Phillies 7 times, though. So
That's a
it's
lot,
not like
yeah.
to say that their claim for the division
They'll get
is
swept.
completely gone.
But
Hey,
that's
I
that.
will not completely hang up my hat on the possibility that a collapse is going to happen. It happened to the Eagles nearly this past football season with the like godlike first 2/3, and then they limped into the postseason and were immediately eliminated. That is looking like another Philly trend But
That's the
I
Philly.
the
That's the Philly
the
special
Philly
right
way
there.
is that our sports are linked.
Yes.
So you kind of know what's going to happen with all of them once you've seen one take the turn.
um,
So, but I
I
think the Phillies, I feel like just odds are they have enough to hold on to the division. But yeah, I mean, there's still enough division play left that things could teeter and they
I
get
think
kicked to a wild card
It
spot.
wouldn't shock me though if Atlanta missed the playoffs. I mean, between the injury bug and just how they've been playing,
I
it
think
it would not shock me.
at this point, it wouldn't shock me. Like if you would have asked me if they would miss the playoffs like a month and a half ago, even maybe a month ago, I'd be like, I can't really see it. But now
At the
it's
halfway point of the season, they were 6 games up in the first wild card spot. So that tells
yeah,
you how much they've
right.
dropped.
And it's just like again, the pedigree with this team. They find a way despite the injuries. I mean, they won the World Series without their superstar, and you just think it's going to happen, but they are really, really reeling right now. And I think, as you said, Solaire's been a nice addition, but do they have enough? I mean, their pitching is getting hit around right now. I don't know, man. John, what's your take on the Braves and really just the NL East in general? Because I think as a Phillies fan as well as it's a little bit scary to see 7 games left against the Braves and the Mets. Like that's a lot of division games where stuff can get shaken up.
Okay. Well, I think the Phillies fans can, as an outsider, I think y'all could chill. They ain't you're
I
they're
mean, I
not
can chill that I think we'll make the postseason,
you could
but I
chill.
mean,
They're
we can.
not going to catch you. You'll be fine. It's
2007 is
your
playing in my head.
all right. Well, it's
We
your
just have an axe
division.
to grind. That's why we want. That's why
You
we're
you
worried about
just
the Braves
want to
catching.
have a chip on your shoulder at this point.
Well,
And that's
yeah.
coming from an Orioles fan, man. Like,
They
you
just say
know,
that motivation in the playoffs, like Bryce being pissed off at something and then having like batting 500 in the postseason.
oh no, you need somebody to say "attaboy, Bryce" and make fun
Yeah,
of him, and then
there you go.
I
he'll
mean,
launch a nuke into Jersey.
The Phillies did just also take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers in LA, so maybe it's a situation too right now of at least I'm not like I was gonna say playing down to their opponents, and I know that they played like the Diamondbacks were one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, but still, I mean, when you're the number one or one of the number one teams in baseball, at least for a lot of the season, it's maybe the Phillies did get a little too lax there, and that um they didn't step up and they're just kind of taking things too easy and they need kind of this slap in the face. The only problem is they've been slapped in the face for about 4 weeks straight, and it's kind of like when are you gonna wake up out of this coma?
Oh god, that's good. Yeah,
I think Atlanta could honestly miss the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me. We knew once Acuna went down that it was kind of like, what's next? What?
yeah.
This guy was literally our offense last year. Like, Van hit what 40 home runs and stole 70 bases. Like, what do we do? So to lose that the next year when you were a World Series favorite, honestly, like it it's kind of it would kind of be a shock to the system. I think
Yeah.
it's a shock to the system for Atlanta, and I think that uh, they have maybe shocked to the point where they're going into cardiac arrest at this point. These next couple weeks are going to really determine what the Braves are going to be in in the postseason. So if they can, they need to have a winning record over these next like 3 weeks, and they need to be able to go into September confident in order for them to make the postseason. If they leave the Mets hanging around, those grimace Mets are gonna come out of nowhere and mollywop them back to the uh outside of the postseason.
Mollywop is such a good word. I will never not laugh at that word. I will say, I think we're gonna know Atlanta's faith by September because you look at,
But
I mean,
when in September?
No, I'm saying I think early September because they have 7 games against the Phillies. I think that alone is going to tell you where they're at, right? And I
I
think,
don't think that tells you where it's at. It's everything else that tells you where you're at.
but I
I mean,
mean, you
to lose to one of the best teams in baseball does not really tell you when you're this injured what where you stand.
I just think it's one of those things that okay, so say they come in and they take out of those 7 games, let's say they take 5 out of 7 from the Phillies, right? First of all, the division gets really interesting, but then you also have that confidence that okay, we're back in this, right? Like I feel like the only thing I'll say with the Braves is as bad as they've been to their standard this year, I would be very scared as a NL East supporting fan for any other of the teams. Like if they get a groove here in late August, early September, that becomes a little bit scary because we know the potential that that team has, and they have a series starting August 20th against the Phillies in Atlanta that maybe that jump starts them. They also have a couple series against other teams in the playoff picture too. So I think I really do think the next couple of weeks are going to be huge for the Braves.
I would
Going
agree
forward.
with your sentiment of the whole if they get into a groove, we know what this team can do, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But when they're this injured, I don't think so. I think this is a year where that is not the case. Maybe
It,
next year,
it is certainly possible.
I mean,
definitely in past years, but
to give like an idea of what the Braves need to do going forward right now with roughly uh what is it 44 games left in the season. If the Phillies were to go roughly 500 the rest of the way at like which would be like 21 and 22 for them, let's say, and they finish with 90 wins, then the Braves need to go like 29 and 15 the rest of the way to finish one game better than them or something. So like that just
But do
gives you an
we think
idea.
that's? I feel like that's possible with them though.
For
Like
the
that's the
Braves,
thing.
I don't. I would
no,
believe more
Like
the Mets, but
no.
not the Braves, even though
I'm
I still feel
talking,
like it's a long shot.
and
Tyler,
maybe.
you're also thinking of the Braves as the Braves of the past couple
Oh,
years.
absolutely. That's what I'm
The-
saying.
these are
But
not those same Braves because they're hurt. If they
oh
were
yeah,
not hurt, they would probably be leading the division. No offense to the
Based
Phillies.
on how the Phillies have played recently, yeah, they probably would have been neck and neck. The Braves would have
It
pulled ahead.
it would have at very least been neck and neck. If not, the Braves would be up by probably 3 games at this point. So, you know, these are not the same Braves that we saw win the World Series. These are not the same Braves we saw last year. These are not the same Braves that.
I agree with that sentiment. My thing is now they have been injured, like Albies has been out and stuff, but they have that same core of guys that yes, they are having a down year. Really respectfully, like all of them are really kind of down this year. But they have, that Matt Olson, who we know what player he can be. They have Austin Riley. We know what player he can be when he's playing his best. Ozuna has been really good this year. They get Jorge Soler in. So I think 29 and 15 with the way they look right now, I agree. It's absolutely probably not even possible, like the way they look right now. But if they kind of get hot here in the next week or two, I all I'm saying is I wouldn't put it past them based on what they've done in the past. Is that a bad argument? Maybe, but I think I do weigh a lot of um you know opinion on pedigree for teams. Same thing with Houston, right? They have this group. You kind of know what you get with them at some point. You could see them turning it around and doing what they're doing. I think again it
Yeah,
would be
but
a
there's
tough
a
ask for the
difference.
Braves, but
There's a
I
difference.
get the injuries.
Houston, literally, everybody was. They've kept their core of veterans healthy. Atlanta has not. Like
Yeah,
they are hurt. They are limping. They might be crawling. They might have no legs at this point.
I mean, all I'm saying is I just watch for them if they start turning around the next couple games
The
here.
the
If
Braves need to
Acuna was
play.
still on the team, if Acuna was still playing this year, I might agree with you.
To go 29-15, that's about, if they were to do that at the length of a full season, that's about a pace of 106 win season. They need to do that the rest of the way and hope that the Phillies can be 500
I mean, honestly,
or even worse. And
I
that's just really far fetched to think. Is it impossible? No, but it's really, really hard, especially because they're also battling the Mets. And so it's not like it's a clear cut Braves Phillies race the rest of the way. It's a 3-team race, and all types of stuff could change it a little bit there because for whatever reason.
I think, I kind of talked about their batters. I will say the one thing that really I think is going to determine what happens with them is their pitching because, Chris Sale is basically the last man standing right now for
Schwellenbach's been
all
good.
of their pitchers. He's the last man standing.
Schwellenbach's been good, but I'm talking about the Lopez, the Spencer Strider, like the guys they had at the start of the season who they thought were going to produce. Like he's the last one that's really hanging on injury wise. So I think their pitching is really going to be a big thing. I mean, you've kind of already answered this question, but to straight on, like you see the Mets or the Braves as a bigger threat to the Phillies for the rest of the season.
Mets, purely because the Phillies hate the Mets. There's this stigma that's never going to wear off.
That is the right answer. That is the right answer. There is no other answer to take as the right answer.
Guys, there's no race that the Phillies are in here.
No,
it's
I'm not.
Their division.
It's
a race for
against
second
themselves
place.
And the Mets. It's against
you would have
themselves and the
to
Mets.
historically collapse.
You say the Mets and the Phillies have a narrative where this is possible. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen, but the Phillies and the Mets
would have to only win maybe 10 games in order for it to be that bad at this point.
Brother,
it's happened though.
You really don't get it, do you? You really don't get what type of talent this is. Do you know the type of history-making things the city of Philadelphia has experienced? Especially the Phillies.
85 wins is going to lock up your division. You will get 85 wins. You will be fine.
I don't know if that locks up the division, though. 90, I think, is kind of the lockup number.
I mean, honestly, that
maybe a little less.
No team 90, no team this year is on pace to win 95 games at this point. So,
that's wild.
Let's see who's got the best win percentage. I'm going to do some math.
It's crazy to think about, but
is it the Orioles right now or Dodgers?
Which is funny because
I think it's
Guardians.
I think it's
92.
Cleveland. Yeah, I think it's Cleveland.
The funny part about that too is I think I had the Dodgers at 110 wins or something, and
can we switch to the NL West? Can we switch?
Will. I want to save that for last because it's easily the most entertaining division.